Okay, shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Yamuna madam, ready and good to go.
Dr. Yamuna madam, ready?
Yeah, always ready, sir.
Okay, madam. So, namaste to all of you. A warm evening to all of you. I am thankful to all of you for joining us today for a lecture by Dr. Jaidevi, coinciding with Bhishma Day, that is Ratha Saptami. This endowment, there are two endowments under which Bhishma Day is celebrated every year. Just a day or one day before or after, we used to have this endowment lecture. Today it happens to be on the same day. And one is in the name of, both are great personalities from Mylapore. I think most of the Mylapurians know about them. One is Sri T.V. Viswanatha Iyer, a very highly respected advocate of Madras High Court, who has been closely connected with Madras Sanskrit College, Samskrita Academy, Kuppuswamy Sastry Research Institute, and many other institutions as well. And the other name, which most of us are familiar with, is C.K. Chandrasekharan, who has been hailed as a model Sahridaya. And we have had opportunities to interact with him, listen to him. And he is the youngest son of C.V. Krishnaswamy Iyer, a highly learned person, very erudite in many fields, the field of art, aesthetics, kavya, and also in Alankara Shastra and so many things, and including law. By profession, he was a lawyer. So, in both of their names, he was also connected with all these institutions from their inception. That is Kuppuswamy Sastry, and then Madras Sanskrit College, and then our Samskrita Academy. They were all the pillars who brought up this institution, these institutions rather. So we pay our homage to both these stalwarts from Mylapore, and who became nationally well known for their contribution in their respective fields. And I'm extremely glad that this tradition is being continued by the Sanskrit Academy. And today we have got a young speaker who will be talking on this two endowment. And I would request our secretary, Dr. Sita Sundararaman, to introduce today's speaker to all of us. Over to Dr. Sita Sundararaman.
Namaskaram. A great pleasure in introducing today's speaker, Dr. Jaidevi. Jaidevi has an MA in Sanskrit from the Shastra University and a PhD in Sanskrit from the Madras University. The subject of the thesis was Purushartha Sudhanidhi, a subject on Niti as per the Ajna of His Holiness Sri Balaparida. She also has PG diploma in different subjects in business management from Annamalai University. She has presented a number of papers in India and abroad. In Bangkok, she presented a paper on Raja Dharma through birds and animals in Shanti Parva of Mahabharata. Some of her other papers presented by her are Raghuvamshe Subhashiteshu Prakriti Vaichitryam, Political Ethics in Subhashita Nevi in Vedanta Deshika, Views of Kautilya on the role of an ambassador in international relations, unpublished manuscript in Niti Shastra, Sanskrit translation of Shakespeare's classics, and so on. She has also several degrees in Hindi from the Hindi Prachar Sabha, and she is also a trained singer of Carnatic music and an AAR B grade artist. We welcome you to Jaydevi and let's start your lecture. Thank you.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes,
Is the slide visible?
Yeah, the slide is also visible.
Shall I start now, ma'am?
yes, please.
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये. Good evening to all the respected scholars. I feel really blessed to present this lecture on Niti in Mahabharata on this auspicious day today. So, among all the creatures in the world, being born as a human is the boon bestowed by the Lord Almighty. As it is said in Manusmriti, Buddhimatsu Naraha Shreshtaha. Among the intelligent creatures, human beings are the best. In order to make that birth fruitful, noble goal is very essential. That noble goal can be collectively called as Purushartha, which is a fourfold, such as Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These Purusharthas are extensively analyzed in Vedas, Dharma Sutras, Smritis, Itihasas, Puranas, and Kavyas. In that analysis, etiquette, which is a set of customs and rules for polite behavior followed by the nobles, has been significantly stressed. This is popularly called as Shishtachara, and that which is instrumental in the Shishtachara is Niti. It is said in the etymology of the word Niti, Ni Prapane, that which leads a person in the path of righteousness is Niti. There are several texts written on Niti Shastra, such as Panchatantra of Vishnu Sharma, Hitopadesha of Narayana, Purusha Pariksha of Vidyapati, Niti Dvishashtika of Sundara Pandya, Niti Shataka of Bhartrahari, Shanti Shataka of Shilhana, Anyukti Muktalata of Shambhukavi, and so on. So for all these texts, Itihasas and Puranas form a strong basis. So now here, Niti is viewed from the perspective of the great epic Mahabharata. Morals and ethics are abundantly found in several places in the epic. For example, the virtue of Guru Bhakti is being highlighted through Aruni, Upamanyu, and Veda, the disciples of Ayodhya Daumya, and Uttamka, the disciple of Veda in Paushya Parva, and the same concept, the same virtue through Ekalavya in Sambhava Parva, the principle of Ahimsa advised by Dunduba Tururu in Poloma Parva, the virtue of Matru Bhakti through the characters of Garuda and Astika in Astika Parva, and the trait of forgiveness through the sage Shamika in the same Parva, and the characteristic features of an ideal husband, wife, and a father, as illustrated by Shakuntala to Dushyanta in Sambhava Parva, control of anger as advised by Shukracharya to his daughter Devayani in the same Parva, the virtue of Pitrubhakti through the character of Puru in that Parva itself, and the same virtue through the character of Parashurama in Tirthayatra Parva. And the concept of Rajaniti is explained in detail by the king Yayati to his son Puru before the coronation ceremony in the Sambhava Parva, which is applicable to a common man as well. The same explained by Lord Hanuman to Bhima in Tirthayatra Parva, and elaborately explained by Bhishma to Yudhishthira in Rajadharmanushasana Parva, the concept of Putaniti as advised by Kanika to Dhritarashtra in the last part of Sambhava Parva, guidelines of friendship as put forth by the king Drupada to the sage Dronacharya in Sambhava Parva and Chaitraratha Parva, discourse of Arjuna on Velar to Yudhishthira to face Jarasandha in Rajasuya Arambha Parva, Yudhishthira's words on the evils of gambling to Shakuni in Dyuta Parva, sayings of the sage Shaunaka to Yudhishthira on how to heal the physical illness through the removal of mental strain in Aranya Parva, ethics as advised by the Rajarshi Arshtikona to Yudhishthira in Yakshadhyuta Parva, which are in the form of questions that are applicable to a king and a common man as well. And the most famous Viduraniti in Prajagara Parva, and so on. So, here the concept of Niti can be analyzed under the following heads. Niti through birds, animals, reptiles, and insects. And the second category is Niti through the teachings and pious quality of sages. So the first category predominantly deals with Rajaniti, and the second category deals with the Samanya Niti. So first, Niti through birds, animals, reptiles, and insects. All of us on the planet Earth see birds, animals, and insects around us. But most of us don't have enough time to notice their nature and behavior. Specialists such as zoologists trace and record the characteristic features of the birds and animals. But the common man today is least bothered about them. Several ancient texts such as Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra and Gunadhya's Gahat Katha have tried to explore the characteristic features of the birds and animals through numerous stories. For these fables, several early texts such as Vedas and epics sowed the seed well in advance. It's very interesting to know that apart from the basic facts of life, the nature of these creatures had been wonderfully synced with the Niti, which includes Rajaniti along with the Samanya Niti too. In the epic Mahabharata, there are infinite examples to establish this fact. Like Stali Palaka Nyaya, few can be analyzed here. First is moral through mule, Ashwatari. In Adi Parva, Sambhava Parva, mule has been cited as an example by Kanika while giving advice on Dandaniti to Dhritarashtra. Dandena Upanatam Shatrum Anugrunati Yo Naraha Samrityam Upagruniyat Garbham Ashwatari Yata. He who shows mercy through wealth and respect, because in Bhavadipa, Nilakanta has quoted mercy through wealth and respect, Dhanamanadina. So he says like that. So he who shows mercy on an enemy controlled through punishment embraces death like a mule which invites death by becoming pregnant. So here, to justify this statement, some scientific facts can be quoted. A mule is the offspring of a male donkey, Jal, and a female horse, Mad. Mules have 63 chromosomes. A mixture of the horse is 64 and donkey is 62. The different structure and number usually prevents the chromosomes from pairing up properly and creating successful embryos, rendering most of mules infertile. It is said that pregnancy is rare, but can occasionally occur through embryo transfer. In the case of natural process, it will be fatal, resulting in the death of this creature. So how aptly this concept has been synced for the illustration of Dandaniti here. Next one is mouse, Akuhu va Mushakaha. In Adi Parva, Jatugraha Parva, mouse has been indicated as an example by Vidura while giving instructions in Mlecha Bhasha to Yudhishthira on self-defensive techniques in Lakshagраha. Kakshagnaha Shishiragmascha Mahakakshe Vilaukasaha Na Dahediti Chatmanam Yo Rakshati Sajivati. He lives who protects himself by the knowledge that neither the consumer of straw and the wood nor the dryer of juice burns the inmates of a hole in the deep forest. Here, the literal translation of Vilaukasa is inmates of the hole. But in the Hindi translation, as well as the English translation, they have indicated inmates of hole like a mouse and a rat. But in Bhavadipa, Nilakanta has quoted just below Kusami, Pandavas only has indicated. Because by digging a hole inside the Lakh Palace, O Pandavas, the digger of holes, can protect yourself from the fire. So I have taken, according to the translation, the mouse as an example here. So mice are known to build intricate burrows. These burrows have long entrances and are equipped with escape channels. In at least one of the species, the architectural design of a burrow is a genetic trait. This has been established by the zoologist because there are 4 types such as Unduru, Apu, Mushaka and Chichundara. So this expertise of this creature has been well demonstrated in this verse. So here is also, it is also worth mentioning about the text Mrgapakshi Shastra by the Jain author Hamsadeva. See that in his text, while describing the characteristic features of Aku, the author says, Bahushaha Shwabhrakarinaha, the digger of several big holes. And in the case of Mushaka too, he says, Shashwat Bhurandra Kattaraha, digger of holes on the earth. So the example is apt here in this context. The next one is tortoise, Kurmaha. In Adi Parva, Sambhava Parva, Kanika, while explaining to Dhritarashtra the ways to protect oneself from the enemy, says, Guhet Kurma Iva Angani Rakshet Vivaramatpanaha. It is said that the tortoise shell is a highly complicated shield for the ventral and the dorsal parts of the tortoise. Ventral and dorsal parts means the upper part and abdominal part of the tortoise, completely enclosing all the vital organs and in some cases even the head. Most tortoises have a large dome-shaped shell that makes it difficult for the predators to crush between the jaws. Actually, there are, in Rajaniti, there are several limbs of the kingdom such as Swami, Lord, Amatya, ministers, Jana, subjects, Durga, fortress, Kosha, treasury, Danda, Rad, as well as Suhrit, allies, which a king has to protect like a tortoise protects his vital organs through the process of retraction into his shell. The 7 limbs of the kingdom have been compared with the vital organs of the tortoise. Even the synonym Kachapa suggests this characteristic feature. Kacham Atmano Mukha Samputam Pati iti. So that which protects his face is called Kachapa. How apt is the example in text? The next one is porcupine. Orbit. The protective feature of the burrow created by the porcupine has been beautifully cited as an example by Vidura in Jatagruha Parva while explaining the defensive measures to be taken by Pandavas for the escape from the Lakh Palace. Anaptaihi dattam adatte naraha shastram alohajam shwavicharanam asadhya pramucheta kutashanat. So having understood the nature of construction of the Lakh Palace, which is built with the help of inflammable substances, of course not made up of iron, and taking the refuge of the burrow, like the one created by the porcupine, one can escape from the fire. So here also some scientific facts can be quoted about the capacity of the porcupine to construct the burrow. A study conducted by the researchers from the Salim Ali Center for the Ornithology and Natural History shows that porcupines are known to be great engineers and that burrows can go up to 13 meters in length with a number of side chambers of varying depths. So burrows play an important role in giving refuge and protection against the weather and predators. It's very interesting to know about the Indian crested porcupine, which shares its burrow with 22 different species, including birds and reptiles. And here also, it's very interesting to quote Nilakanta. In his Bhavadipa, he says, why among there are so many inmates of hole, but why he has chosen porcupine? Further, he says, Asya bilam, arthat shvavidah bilam ubhayato mukham bhavati. There are 2 entrances for the burrows created by the porcupine. So escape will be very easy because Bhima himself is a very well-built person and he carries along with him 4 brothers as well as Kunti. So this Vidura indirectly instructs the Pandavas regarding the construction of the tunnel, which should be of highly protective in nature and accommodative of 6 persons. Next is wolf, Vrkaha. The deadly nature of the carnivorous wolf has been aptly cited as an example by Kanika while describing the methodology to be adapted to attack the enemy. Agnyadhanena yajnena kashayena jatajinaihi lokana vishwasayitva eva tato lumpet yata vrikaha. One should first gain the confidence of his enemies and then spring upon them like a wolf. The deceptive nature of the wolf is well known. As far as the wolf's hunting nature is concerned, animal behavioral specialists observe that wolves appear to exhibit insight, foresight, understanding, and the ability to plan. While hunting gregarious prey, wolves will try to isolate an individual from its group. They tend to hunt by ambushing their prey and rarely giving pursuit. That is why Hamsadeva in his text Mrigapakshi Shastra says about this carnivorous, Vanya Sattva Kramarataha Nana Mrigasthana Vidaha Tikshna Karnaivaha. Knowing the hiding places of different animals, having sharp ears, wolves were indulged in attacking their prey. These characteristic features indicate their deceptive nature. So even by the deceptive means, an enemy should be conquered. That is why Nilakanta in his Bhavadipa says, Dambadina api shatruhu jayaha, by whatever means. So there's a popular saying, as all of you know, everything is fair in love and war. And next one is ants, Pipilika. The protective nature of the ants with regard to their eggs has been wonderfully pointed out by Shakuntala in the court of Dushyanta. Am I audible, ma'am? Hello?
Yes, you're audible. You're audible.
Okay. The protective nature of the ants with regard to their eggs has been wonderfully pointed out by Shakuntala in the court of Dushyanta while indicating his responsibility towards the child Bharata. Andani bibrati swanina bhintanti pipilikaha na bhretaha khatam nutvam dharmanyasan swamatpajam. Even ants support their offspring and don't destroy their eggs. Why then should you not, being learned in the rules of piety, support your own child? So here, entomologists observe. So entomology is a study of insects. So those who are specialists are called entomologists. They observe that ants form colonies which consist of workers, soldiers, and other specialized groups. The colonies are described as superorganisms as they appear to operate as a unified entity, collectively working together to support the colony. Ants develop by complete metamorphosis, with the larval stages passing through a pupal stage before emerging as an adult. The larva is largely immobile and is fed and cared for by workers. Food is given to the larvae by trophallaxis, a process in which an ant regurgitates. Regurgitation is a process of swallowing food and again keeping in the mouth to feed the offspring. So it regurgitates the liquid food held in its crop. Larvae, especially the later stages, may also be provided solid food brought by the workers. So here in this context, can the parental care be illustrated in a better way in the above verse? And the next illustration is, it is not moving. 1 second. Next slide is not coming.
I think you have clicked on annotation.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
What should I do now?
Just switch it off, and I think then you can move it to the next slide.
I have to log out?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it's coming. So next illustration is crow. Vayasaha. The tendency of crows to protect and nourish the chick of cuckoos has been quoted by Shakuntala in the court of Dushyanta to invoke his sense of responsibility towards his own son Bharata. Mama andani vadhante kokiranaamapi vayasaha kim punastum na bhanyethaha sarvanyah putram idrisham. Crows nourish the eggs of cuckoos like their own. But, O king, having known everything, why don't you accept your own son? Cuckoos are well known for laying eggs in the nest of crows. It's generally believed that crows nourish the chicks of cuckoos without knowing the reality. As the chick starts making sound, the crow will be able to know the truth. But by the time the wings would have grown and that the chicks would have reached their own group. An interesting study was conducted on the intelligence of crows. The study reveals that when disturbed, the cuckoo chicks emit copious amounts of a sticky, smelly substance, which deters predators from the nest. This indicates that the cuckoo's excretion is a very powerful mechanism likely to save both cuckoo and crow chicks alike from the predators. So, although crows appear to be behaving generously towards cuckoos, they are intelligent. They tolerate cuckoos because of the benefit they provide their own aim. So here in the opposite example, we can say that even though with a selfish motive, the crow, being a bird, tolerates and nourishes the other species like its own, how, being a knowledgeable king, can you ditch off your own son? Next one is eagle, Bharundaha. While advising Yudhishthira to be always alert of enemies, Bhishma compares enemies with eagles. Eagles attack their prey when the later becomes careless. It is the same with the enemies. So the king too has always to be alert with respect to his enemies. Etebhyascha apramatta syat sada shatror Yudhishthira bharunda sadusha hyete nipatanti pramadataha. Eggs are the brother species of hawks and falcons. They have unusual eyesight. While human beings see just 3 basic colors, eagles see 5. These adaptations give eagles extremely keen eyesight and enable them to spot even well-camouflaged potential prey from a very long distance. In fact, the vision of the eagles is among the sharpest of any animal, and studies suggest that some eagles can spot an animal the size of a rabbit from 2 miles away. So they are very keen and intelligent. As soon as they have spotted their target, they swoop down and snatch the prey. Bharunda is another name of Grudra because Nilakanta in his commentary has mentioned Bharundo Grudraha. Regarding this bird, Hamsadeva in his text says, Sukshma Netraha, Sukshma Medha Samayuktaha. This bird with sharp eyes and shrewdness and intelligence are skilled hunters. So the trait of vigilance has to be learned from this bird. Next one is Hawk, Shenaha. On being asked by Yudhishthira regarding the behavior of a righteous king, Bhishma narrates the story of the king Vasumana and the sage Vamadeva, where the sage, while explaining the royal duties to the king, advises him to be very careful regarding powerful enemies. A person can't rest easy after harming a powerful enemy and staying far away. Just like the hawk, he will attack that person wherever he goes. Apakritya balastasya dhurastosmiti nashvase shenavipatanaireete nipatanti pramadhyataha. As far as hawks are concerned, it has been scientifically proved that they have 4 types of color receptors in the eyes. These give the birds the ability to perceive not only the visible range but also the ultraviolet part of the spectrum, and other adaptations allow for the detection of polarized light or magnetic fields. This is due to the many photoreceptors in the retina, an exceptional number of nerves connecting these receptors to the brain, and an intended fovea. It is a small part in the retina behind the eye. The light flows on that part only, which magnifies the central portion of the visual field. Again, here it's very apt to quote Hamsadeva regarding hawks. Sukshma netraha gagane duragaschaiva nitaram degasharinaha traurya bhajaha pakshi himsana tatparaha. The hawks with sharp eyesight travel long distances in the sky with great speed or engaged in killing the birds very ruthlessly. Next is snakes, sarpaha. In many places in the Mahabharata, the nature and behavior of snakes have been cited as an example to indicate royal duties. Bhishma advises Yudhishthira not to be non-valorous while fighting the enemies by saying that the snake kills the rat in the hole. Similarly, the earth swallows a king who doesn't fight the enemies and a Brahmin who doesn't go out for adhyayana, education. Dvavimau gasate bhumis sarpo bilashayaniva rajanam cha virodharam brahmanam cha pravasinam. Here, there are some categories of rats such as Aku, Mushaka, etc., which I have previously mentioned, which are said to possess poisonous teeth. Hamsadeva in his text Mrigapaksha Shastra makes a reference to these types of rats. He says that rats belonging to the category of Aku have poisonous teeth, and if they bite anyone, he will die on the account of poison. Damshanaihi prana hantaraha vishadamshtasya kitikaha. If Hamsadeva further says that rats belonging to the category of Mushaka too have venomous teeth, and if they bite, lives are lost. Vishadamshta samayuktaha damshanaihi jiva hanidaha. So, even though the snake is dangerous, if the rat uses his strength to fight the snake, he'll be able to conquer the latter. Poison and cruelty are the common factors present both in the snake and the rat. Similarly, valor and bravery are the common factors present in the king and his enemy. So, it is the duty of the king to make use of his effort to fight his enemy. Now, Bhishma compares the king who is intelligent but non-diligent with a non-venomous snake and says that such a person can be easily defeated by his enemies. Uttana hino rajai buddhimanapi nityashaha pradharshaniya shatrunam bhujanga iva nidvishaha. So Nilakanta says about the word, he comments on the word Uttana. Uttana neva mahat pandityam. Due diligence is intelligence. So it is said about the snakes labeled non-venomous that they are harmless, as they either lack a venom delivery method or they are incapable of delivering enough venom to endanger a human. For example, the only defense of grass snakes, which are non-venomous, is to produce a garlic-smelling fluid from the anal glands or to fade it by becoming completely limp. In spite of this intelligent attitude of defense, they are also attacked by creatures such as storks, owls, foxes, and domestic cats. In many places in Mahabharata, an angry king has been compared to a poisonous snake. While explaining the relationship between the king and his ministers, Bhishma narrates the story of the king, Kshemadarshan, and sage Kalakavrikshiya. In the story, the sage says that the life of ministers is not their own. It depends upon the mood of the king, who gets angry like a venomous snake. Ashi Vishamiga Kuddam Prabhum Pranabhaneshwaram Yatnenopachare Nityam Nahamasmeti Manavaha. He further adds that a person in contact with the kings is dealing with highly venomous serpents. He can expect danger at any moment. Ashi Vishayista Fasyahu Sangatam Yasya Rajabihi Bahumitracha Rajano Bah Amitras Tataivacha Hepya Sadvebya Eva Kurbhayam Rajopajivinam Tataivaisham Rajato Rajan Muhurta Deva Bhir. In the same context, sage Kalakavrikshiya compares an ill-tempered enemy with a venomous snake with a crushed tile. The attack by the injured snake is fatal. Similarly, an ill-tempered enemy is highly dangerous. Nahi teshamaham druptastaptesham doshadarshanam arehi durhrutat bhayam bhagna pucha diva uragat. So Nilakanta, he says in his commentary, Pritta bhangena kopitat, that snake which becomes angry because of the crushed tile. So he compares the ill-tempered enemy with a snake with a crushed tile. While describing the royal duties, Bhishma is being asked by Yudhishthira, among the persons of equal capabilities and qualities, how does one of them become the most powerful to rule? In that context, Bhishma cites the example of the snake. An angry and venomous snake eats other small snakes. Creatures without legs become prey of the creatures with legs, and toothless creatures become prey of the creatures with teeth. Similarly, a highly valorous person rules numerous non-valorous persons. Yachara Hyacharan Madhyuhu Adamštran Dhamtrinas Tata Ashi Vishaiva Buddha Bhujangan Bhujagaiva. To justify this statement, some scientific facts about the snakes can be mentioned here. While the majority of the snakes eat a variety of animals, there is some specialization by some species, like king cobras and the Australian snake called bandy bandy consume other snakes only. The supreme being has created the powerful king to protect the weak people. It is his moral responsibility to protect them and not torture them. Emphasizing this point, sage Utatya, son of Angiras, advises the king Mandata not to torture a weak person whose anger is capable of burning even the strong person to ashes. The reason is that an anger of a weak person, a sage, venomous snake, won't be endured very easily. दुर्बलस्य यच्चक्षुः मुनेः आशी विषस्य च अविशसित्वं मन्ये मास्म दुर्बलम् आसदः. So all of us know that most attacks of snakes are defensive behavior only. Biting is the last resort, the final weapon in a snake's arsenal if the warning doesn't work. Similarly, it's always dangerous to hurt a weak person or make him angry, because his anger is as dangerous as the final weapon in a snake's arsenal, the biting. And mention of various animals and birds in a single shloka in Mahabharata. So the underlying principle of Dandaniti is that the strongest always survives at the cost of the weakest. Arjuna emphasizes on this point by drawing our attention to the eating habits of animals. The mongoose is the rat, the cat is the mongoose, dog is the cat, and cheetah is the dog. Nakulo mushakanatti vidalo nakulam tata vidalamati swarajan shwanam vyalamrgastata. Mongooses are known for constantly stalking their prey before savagely killing them. Likewise, the feline body of cat is built to stalk, chase, and capture small prey with ease. In the case of dogs, their visual system is highly attuned to detect movement. The slightest motion often triggers the dog to give a chase. In the aforesaid group, the ultimate is cheetah. Its hunt starts with a slow stalk and will be followed by an explosive acceleration to full speed. From this, it should be understood that the king should be a stalker who silently observes the situation and takes action in the right time. It is a major responsibility of the king to implement the law of order at all times. Arjuna adds that the law and order should be strictly adhered to. Unless driven by force, animals like camel, ox, horse, donkey, mule, and ass will not carry the vehicles forward even though yoked with them. Nachoshrana balivadda na ashvatara gardabaha yuktavaheyuryanani edidandona palaye. So as far as camels are concerned, it said that unless they are being forced to exert themselves, they tend to be lethargic and phlegmatic in nature. They are not very energetic animals. They spend most of the day in one spot, using very little energy, having a low metabolic rate. So it's interesting to quote Hamsadeva's Mrugapakshi Shastra here. He classifies camels into 4 types, such as Ushtra, Kamelaka, Daseraka, and Mahanga. So among these types, by describing the characteristic features of Daseraka, he says, Durdharshaha Grahankaraha. They are difficult to manage and are egoistic by temperament. In the case of oxen, they are taught to respond to the signals of the bullock or ox driver. That's why they are described by Hamsadeva as Yantru Chittanuvartiraha. These signals are given by the verbal command, body language reinforced by a board, whip, or a long pole. So as far as horses are concerned, many stallions have a great deal of naturally aggressive dominant behavior that requires that they be managed only by knowledgeable handlers. Even when trained, some horses with dominant personalities will openly challenge a weak or inexperienced handler. Without consistent handling, the horses may revert to their untrained ways. While describing the different varieties of horses, Hamsadeva in his text describes a variety called Vahaha as Dandasadhyaha Opayuktaha. They are bad-tempered and controlled through punishment only. Mules are described in the text Mrugapakshi Shastra as हयवत् शिक्षणोचिताः दुर्दर्शाः कोपकाले दण्डसाध्याः. They are trained like horses, difficult to control and controlled only with a rod when get irritated. Donkeys are more stoic in their behavior. Compared to horses, donkeys show limited fear to novel situations, and this can be mistaken for stubbornness rather than fear. It is said that the donkey's behavior will be influenced by the ability, experience, and confidence of its handler. This characteristic feature is aptly described by Hamsadeva as Kope Dushkarya Lolupaha Durdharshaha Santavakya Parasha. When furious, they act wickedly, difficult to manage, and are controlled through gentle words. So, if it is so in the case of animals, what to say about humans? Explaining the importance of applying the law of punishment, Arjuna states that if the law of punishment is not followed, the dog will lick the sacrificial oblation and the crow will take away the same. Avishwa pradihe drishtva dandaschenodyoto bhave hare kakaf purodasham yeditandona palaye. Generally, it is well known that animals such as dogs and birds such as crows have the tendency to taste or pick up anything that they see or feel like eating. Such would be the behavior of the indiscriminate. At such times, the rod, law of punishment, is essential in order to prevent them from doing so. So, Dandaniti is an important ingredient of Rajadharma. Arjuna emphasizes this by telling Yudhishthira not to show sympathy to his enemies. Killing an enemy doesn't lead to infamy. Majata anigdata shatrunu manupavata parthiva tatatta kelvisham kinchit hatut bhavati bharata. Like these, there are infinite examples where the characteristic features of birds and animals have been indicated to teach morality and ethics to the king and the society in general. Now, let's move on to the next category. Niti through the teachings and pious quality of sages. Sages play a very important role in shaping the tradition, culture, customs, and so on. Their pivotal role is very often emphasized in the ancient scriptures, right from the Vedas to Kavyas. There are several synonyms of sages such as Muni, Brati, Rishi, Vachamyama, Satyava, Mauni, etc. Each synonym signifies the quality of the sages, like Munihi, Manute Janati Yaha, he who knows everything, Brati, Bratamasya Stiti, he who is the observer of oaths, Rishihi, Rishati Prapnoti Sarvana Mantrana Jnanena Pashyati Samsara Paramvaiti, he who is the knower of all mantras, perceiver of the matters which are impossible to perceive through the ordinary sensory organs, with the divine wisdom. Satyavak, Satya Vakyasya, he who only speaks the truth. Vachamyamaha, Vacho Vakyati Echati, Viramati iti, holding the tongue, maintaining perfect silence, because as all of us know, tongue is the worst enemy and is the root cause of most of the problems in our lives. Mauni, Maunam Asya Asti iti, one who is obtusant, in other words, speaker of few words, being silent most of the time. If we ponder over these synonyms, we can definitely say that these adjectives are attributed to the sages because of the righteous path they followed and the firmness with which they observed certain rules and from which they never got diverted. And the epic Mahabharata, the role of various sages in imparting moral lessons through their unparalleled noble qualities is well known. Here also, like Stali Pulakanyaya, few examples can be taken here. First one is Vasishta. Among so many divine qualities of the sage Vasishta, quality of forgiveness, Kshama, can be illustrated here through some incidents from the epic Mahabharata. Kshama Lakshana has been wonderfully explained by the preceptor of Devas, sage Brihaspati. Bahye cha adhyatmike chaiva dukke cha utpadite kvachit na kupyati navahanti sa kshama parikitita. So it has been given in Shabdakalpadhruma, the lexicon, as Kshama Lakshana. Being hurt internally or externally when one doesn't become angry upon the concerned person or hurt him This quality can be called as Kshama. In Adi Parva, Chaitragata Parva, Arjuna, his curiosity being excited by what he heard of Vasishta's ascetic power, asked the Gandharva, Angaraparna, O chief of the Gandharvas, tell me who this illustrious Rishi was, he who was the priest of our forefathers. In reply, Angaraparna says, desire and anger, having been conquered by his ascetic finances, serve his feet. He was so noble-minded and magnanimous that he didn't exterminate the progenies of the Kushika because of the son committed by the sage Vishwamitra. So all of us know the story of the fight between Vishwamitra and sage Vasishta because of the Nandini, Kamadenu. So though the powerful sage's anger was excited by Gadheya, though he was afflicted at the loss of his sons, though he was powerful, yet he appeared to be powerless. He did not perform any dreadful deed for destroying Vishwamitra. Like the great ocean which doesn't cross the shore, he did not transgress the law of the Lord Yama by bringing back his sons from the land of the dead. Putravyasana santaptah shaktimanapi ashaktavat Vishwamitra vinashaya dharunam karma chakre. Angaraparna further says that having learned that by inducing the king Kalmashapada, afflicted by the demon, to eat ruthlessly all his sons, Kaushika is behind this heinous act, sage Vasishta patiently bore his grief. As a great mountain bears the earth, the best of rishis, the foremost of all intelligent men, resolved rather to sacrifice his own life than to exterminate the race of Kushikas. In the verse of Vyasa, Sakrecha Atmadanashaya Buddhim Samunisattamah Natveda Kaushikochedam Mene Matimatam Varaha. So here we have to concentrate on the adjectives given to Vasishta by Vyasa. Not only that, but also he relieved the king Kalmashapada, for whose demonic hunger all the sons of the sage had become prey. From the curse and the water sanctified by his yogic power, the king also got rid of the demon. Can't we say that if there is an embodiment of the quality Kshama, it is none other than the sage Vasishta? Next one is Shamika. Sage Shamika is yet another example of the quality of forgiveness. The personality of the sage Shamika and the quality of forgiveness can very well be understood by going through the adjectives attached to him in the epic. Kshamashilaha, patient; Samshitavrataha, austere; Dayapannaha, compassionate; Paramadharmatma, Dantaha Shantaha, virtuous, self-restrained and composed; Parahitarthi, a person whose intention is always to do good to others; Anukroshatma, one possessed of pity, compassion and tenderness; Jitendriyaha, controller of passions; Vishuddhaha, pure; Adbhutaha, wonderful because of the opposite qualities; Shubhacharaha, a person of holy character; Sarabhutanam Sharanyaha, refuge of all living creatures. So in Adi Parva, Astika Parva, these qualities of the sage have been indicated in 40th, 42nd and 50th chapters. The term Kshama has been defined in the lexicon Shabdakalpadhruma as Akruto vihato yastu na akroshet na hanedapi adushtaihi vagmanah kayehi titupshuscha kshamaskrita. Being induced to become angry and getting wounded, one who doesn't become angry and also doesn't hurt through words, thoughts and deeds. That quality of endurance is called as Kshama. The story of the sage Shamika is well known to all. In spite of being dishonored by putting a dead snake around the neck by the king, Parikshit, he didn't become angry. He not only forgave the king, but also expressed regret over the attitude of his son Shringi, who cursed the king that he would die within 7 days due to the serpent bite. Name priyam kritam tata naishadharmas tapasvinam ayam tasya narendrasya vishaye nivasamahe nyayato rakshitastena asya shapam na rochaye sarvata vartamanasya ragyo hyasvatvidai sada kantavyam putra dharmo hi hato hantina samshayah yadi rajana samrakshe pidana parama bhave. O child, I am not pleased with your act. It is not proper for ascetics to act this. We are in the domains of the king. we are righteously protected by him, and therefore we should not mind his faults. The reigning kings should always be pardoned by men like us. O son, if you destroy Dharma, Dharma will certainly destroy you. If the king doesn't protect us, we will meet with many afflictions. Can anyone deny that the quality of Kshama and the sage Shamika are synonymous to each other? The next one is Ghadicha. Sage Ghadicha is the finest example of Paropakara, the tendency to help others. The following verse stressing the greatness of this right Paropakara has been rendered by the sage Ghadicha himself, which has been indicated in the Uttarakanda of Padma Purana. Ghadichina Puradita Shlokasta Suyate Bhi Sarvadharmamaya Saraha Sarvadharmagya Sammataha Paropakara Kattavya Pranaihi Kantakatairapi Paropakarajam Punyam Pratushatayrapi. Paropakara is the essence of all dharmas, approved by all the dharmajnas. One should help others even at the time of death, the fruit of which is equal to 100 yajnas, sacrifices. In the Vanaparva, Tirthayatra Parva, 100th chapter deals with the fight between the demon Vritta and Lord Indra, where the Paropakara Shilata of the sage Ghadicha has been described. On being asked by Lord Indra, Lord Brahma tells the means of killing the demon. Ghadicha Viktado Bhagavan Vishudhadi. Here we have considered the adjectives given by Lord Brahma to sage Ghadicha. Ghadicha Viktado Bhagavan Rishi Maharishi Udharadihi Tamgatva Sahita Sarve Varam Vai Samprayachata Savodhasyati Dharmatma Upritena Antaratmana. There is a great sage called Ghadicha with magnanimous mind. That virtuous sage will grant you boon wholeheartedly with a pleased mind. It is inherent here that magnanimity and virtuousness are the key ingredients of Paropakara Shilata. And being approached, the sage readily accepts and says that, O celestials, I shall do whatever is to your benefit. I shall even give up my body myself. Vyasa says further that having said this, the foremost of men of subdued soul suddenly gave up his soul. Tato Ghadichaha Paramapratitaha Surokamansan Idamapivacha Paromi Yadvo Hitamatya Devas Punchapi Devam Mutrujami Seva Mukta Dipadam Varutaha Pranana Vashi Swan Sahasos Sajja. So he stresses on the word Sahasos Sajja, Sahasa Mutsa Sajja, Sahasa Akasmata Atarkita. Without any argument, without any second thought, without any hesitation, readily he gave up. So it can be said that for doing Paropakara, not only magnanimity and virtuousness are required, but also wholeheartedness and readiness and firmness of mind are very essential. The next one is Bharadvaja. Here, Bhutadaya has been wonderfully demonstrated through the sage Bharadvaja. Yatnadapi paraklesham hartum yad hudijayate icha bhumisura shrestha ta daya parikitika. This has been indicated in Padma Purana Kriya Yoga Sarakanda in 17th chapter. The desire which is produced in the heart to remove the affliction of others, even with an effort, is said to be daya, compassion. Thus, Bhutadaya has been described in Padma Purana. In the Anushasana Parva, Dana Dharma Parva, Vyasa has wonderfully underlined the virtue of Bhutadaya, compassion for all the creatures, and Pakshapata Shilata, absence of partiality, through the etymological explanation of the name Bharadvaja. Bhare Asutan, Bhare Asushyan, Bhare Devan, Bhare Bijan, Bhare Bharyam, Bhare Dvajam, Bharadvajosmi Shobhane. I protect even those who are not my sons. I protect even those who are not my disciples. I protect Devas. I protect Brahmins. I protect my wife and even those who are born out of Varna Sankara, that is, child born out of mixed caste. Here, what we have to learn is, while helping the others, we should be compassionate towards them, irrespective of their caste, creed, etc. Actually, this is the literal translation of the verse, but here it's very interesting to quote the commentary of Nilakanta in Bhavadipa. Here, Nilakanta in his Bhavadipa has commented on the words Asutana, Asishyana, and Bharyam. He comments on the Asutan as Aputtana, Udasinana, Deenana. Those who are distressed, afflicted, miserable, and wretched. And Asishyana as Shasitum, Ayoghyanapi, Rakshasana. Even the people of demonic nature who are not fit to be nurtured, and Bharyam as Dharanayogyan, Uttana, Bhaktyana. And even servants who ought to be taken care of. So he also gives justification for the corruption offered for segments of the society. He says, Tanu Vashikritya, Tanu Shatruna Vashikritya, Uttanna Karunaya Palayami. Even the enemies through the emergence of compassion over them. So this also reminds one of the verses of Bhagavad Gita, of Bhagavan Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in 9th chapter, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name deshyosti na priyaha. So it has been interestingly commented in Tattva Prakashika as Deva Vidyat Manushya Pashwadi Atmana Avastiteshu Jati Swabhava Jnana Ajnanadina Uttama Madhyama Adameshu Bhuteshu Samadashita. So keeping aside the likes and dislikes, one should be compassionate towards all the creatures. The next one is Shukracharya. In Adi Parva, Sambhava Parva, control of anger has been wonderfully advised by the preceptor of demons, Shukracharya. In Padma Purana, Kriya Yoga Sarakanda, in 17th chapter, the definition of Krodha has been put in apt words. Samakanya Atmano Nindam Yastapo Kriti Jayate Sakrodha iti Vigneya Sarva Dharmava Ghatakaha. The torment which is produced in one's heart after hearing one's censure is called as anger, the destroyer of all virtues. On being insulted by Sharmishta, Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, becomes very angry, and the same situation as described in Padma Purana. At the time, sage Shukracharya advises his daughter to control his anger, explaining its destructive effects. He says that, O Devayani, the man who does not regard the evil words of others conquers everything. The wise men call him a true charioteer, who holds tightly the reins of his horses. He is a true man who subdues his rising anger. In this context, the sage compares the person who subdues his rising anger by forgiveness with a snake which casts off the old skin. Here too, some scientific facts can be quoted. Snakes are unique among the wildlife for many reasons. The reason is their ability to shape the skin in its entirety. Herpetologists. So herpetology is a study of reptiles. Those who are specialists of herpetologists, they say that they do this not only because it does not fit anymore, but it is burned and burned out, but also that helps in removing parasites that could harm the snake. Can we think of more apt example than this in this context? So he's regarding this, he further says he's also capable of achieving 4 goals of life, namely dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. The sage also compares the one who is capable of controlling his anger with the one who performs sacrifices continuously every month for 100 years and establishes that former is always greater than the later. Yogi Aparishyanto Mas Samaha Na Udye Sarvasya Yoho Akrodanaha Adikaha. So, just like the opposite examples, in Shanti Parva, Rajadharmanushasana Parva in 21st chapter, while advising Yudhishthira the necessity of performing sacrifices, absence of malevolent attitude towards others, truthfulness in all respects, compassion, absence of greediness, etc., have been established as the greatest qualities by the sage Devasthana through the conversation between Lord Indra and sage Brihaspati. In the same Parva in 23rd chapter, the act of stealing is being condemned through the tale of sages Shamka and Vikita. There itself, absence of bias while punishing the culprit, not to take the law in one's own hand in the presence of a judicial system have also been stressed. So like these, there are infinite examples here too. Now I want to conclude. Of course, I think all of us would agree this is not the conclusion of the topic, but only the conclusion of the lecture. As told the introductory part itself, the verses that convey Niti are abundant in the epic Mahabharata. Nature, sages, kings, and people of different strata of the society have set themselves as an example for conveying the ways to lead a righteous life. If we ponder over each verse, there is something to learn. As far as the concept of Niti is concerned, the verses that convey it are pregnant with the contemporary sensibilities. They have relevance in all times. So I want to conclude this lecture with this verse. Manasagar Sambhutham Maharsher Bhavitatmanah Katayaswa Satam Sreshta Sarvaratnamayim Imam. The story. So Shaunaka requests Suta to narrate the story of Mahabharata. So he says, he tells like this. The story full of the precious gem-like sacred thoughts was born in the ocean-like mind of the great sage of purified soul. O best of nobles, teach it to me. Thank you. I thank Sanskrit Academy, KSRI, and each and every scholar and all the patient listeners for providing this wonderful opportunity on this auspicious day. Thanks once again.
Dr. K.S. sir.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
am I audible and visible?
Audible, not visible, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Now visible.
Thank you, Dr. Jaydevi. You
Thank you,
have
sir.
presented a beautiful lecture on Niti in Mahabharata, starting with what is the meaning of the etymological meaning of Niti from Nin Prapane, that is taking us to the required goal. What should be the goal? That also you have presented as the Purusharthas or the noble goals. As the Vedanta work says, Sukham me boyat, and how can this Sukha be there unless all the people follow the rules and regulations, everybody confined within their what is called allotted and prescribed spheres. Mahabharata is one such a great story, and you have referred to Pramadvara and Dunduba incident. This incident is found in everywhere. There is in other Puranas as well, especially in Devi Bhagavata too. Mahabharata starts actually with a scientific explanation of the creation of the world. When it starts with the creation, it does not, like other general incidents, start with a creation as such. It starts with the reptilian world. So the whole world was infested with the reptiles at the time, and because no other creatures were there, not much moving, the reptiles were arrogant and they were biting and then they were devouring, and the problem of the reptiles were very serious and severe, and Brahma cursed them because the reptiles were ruling the roost over the world, and thereby the world will Brahma's position is creation. His creation cannot be carried on properly. Then he has to, because the reptiles have taken over, he has to curse them. Of course, immediately it is followed by Kadru Vinata incident. Everything converges towards the Sarpasatra of the Janamejaya. So it is not simply the Sarpasatra of the Janamejaya that is very important, but before the Sarpasatra of the Janamejaya, the incidents that led to Sarpasatra, the Parikshit incident, Samika incident, etc., is only a tool, but the reptilian world, the world was infested by the reptiles, and just as we say, the age of dinosaurs, etc., the age of reptiles were there. So how these people, either they have imagined it, or they have what is called visualized it, or they have, presented in a scientific way, how whatever science we say, they were able to imagine it, they were able to visualize it, then they presented it. In this way, from the very beginning of Mahabharata, we were able to see, of course, our geography professor will be very beautifully presenting it, how through the different manvantras and different kalpas, the evolution of the earth is being presented, and they have been presented in some other lectures in KSRI. And those who are interested, they can just go to those lectures and see how these evolutions can be seen comparable to the modern scientific presentations in Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata, etc. The same thing can be seen in Mahabharata too. So when Mahabharata presents things, it's with a scientific observation it presents, not simply some imagination or some cock and bull stories. And she has presented when the stories, that is when she presented the fables, that is the stories through the niti through animals, birds, etc. as presented in Panchatantra and all those things through Mahabharata nitis. She has not just given the nitis given in the Mahabharata, but she has also justified how the Mahabharata words have been, or the ideas have been justified by Nilakanta in his Bharata Bhava Deepa and Hamsadeva in his Pasupakshi Sastra, and of course some modern scientific what is called explanations too. So justifying the presentation of the Mahabharata presentation through other scientific means also. Incidentally, there are many things like that. She has given the different names, different varieties. Say when we refer to Ashwamedha, Veda says Chatustrimsat Bhanktrayaha. Say the Ashwa that is to be chosen for the Ashwamedha is not an ordinary any Ashwa, but it is a special type of Ashwa. That Ashwa has got rib bones, and the rib bones are special number of bones, and that type of bones is available only especially in some Indian breed. That's not available all over the world. Say Ashwa is also an invention. It has come from all, they say so many things. It has been brought to India and all these things. Leave alone all these things. Whether it has come elsewhere or whether it is local breed or whatever it may be. The ribs of the Ashwas have been classified, and based on the ribs, what should be the nature of the horse and what should be the horse type of use, that which is the special horse having a special number of what is called the rib. That means even during the Vedic period, how they have analyzed all these things, how they have classified based on their ribs and other internal organs and elements. So there is something stupendous and then mind-boggling. So there is a thing, and she is able to present some of these things based on the modern, I mean, Hamsadevas as well as modern work. And we can understand from these things how everything has been going on scientifically simultaneously, how these are not serendipitous things, how these are not accidental things, how these are not cock and bull stories, how these are not just imaginations, how these are really scientific discoveries and inventions and observations. Not only observations, but they have been properly analyzed, properly understood, properly what is called through the generations they have been taken into account, and they have been carried on, they have been recorded, and they have been presented. She is able to say, for example, when we try to understand all these things only through English, that has got some in its own restrictions. Say, for example, if you take the word gruel, which is coming from what is called food, rice, it has got 4 Sanskrit words, manda, yavagu, vodana, and things like that. Generally, we translate everything as a gruel, but that may not be properly right. But in Tamil, we can translate it. That is kanji, kul, kalikam, parukkai. There are different stages of what is called the gruel preparation or the gruel extraction from the rice when it is cooked. So these have to be understood in the local terminologies, in the local languages, in the local cultures. Then we will be able to understand them better. In this way, she has presented the types of how the different types of, I mean, in Ayurveda also they are all presented. How different types of camels are there. Not only in Ayurveda they are presented how their meat, what type of what is called specialities, whether it is heat or cold, what sort of paka they will take, whether it is Jangala Vamsa and which type of what is called the people suffering or the fever, etc. What should they do? Everything has been analyzed. Even water. What are the what is called the chemical characteristics that are present in the different rivers? That also we find. So we can find many of these things incidentally, because she has quoted so much of what is called Hamsadeva. I'm reminded of these things, and of course they have got their own niti aspect also. Say, for example, the word Mauna, when Rishi is referred to as Mauna, as well as what is called Vachang Yama. These are all the characteristics which are presented in Brihadaranyaka and other Upanishads too. Maunena Tishta Set. That is, Mauna is one of the stages like sannyasa, for what is called as the immediate preceding step for the realization. and Anyavacho Vimunchata Amrita Sesha Setuhu. So these are the characteristics which are there in Vedic what is called literature also, and they come down through the Puranas, through the Itihasas. And I would like to quote one thing. When Bhishma says to Yudhishthira all these things, some of the things he gives some stories, some of the stories he says that these stories are in vogue, but where the problems cannot be solved, where there is no what is called clear-cut solutions to certain problems, there he says atrapi imam itihasam udaharanti itihasam puratanam, atrapi imam udaharanti itihasam puratanam. He says people quote this story still because there is no solution. Since there is no solution for this particular problem, say whether what is the nature of the punishment, because a Sankhya king, a king who subscribes to the Sankhya philosophy, Sankhya is being given to utmost Jiva Karunya. Now the king has got a problem. What sort of punishment can be given? Because the capital punishment cannot be restored. And if later on this particular person were to be declared that he is guileless, we will not be able to bring him back. So what should we do in this case? There, because the rule of the king is to maintain law and order, punishment is the important state tool, but at the same time Jiva Karunya also is an important human tool. There is a conflict between human nature and state nature. There Yudhishthira asked this question to Bhishma, and Bhishma says atrapi imam itihasam udaharanti. He says this story is still being quoted. So he can give only the story. So many of the informations given by Bhishma is not ordinary informations, not simple what is called cock and bull stories or simple knowledge given to him, but it is also one of the important point that is current in the tradition, which have been quoted during the times of Bhishma by the elders, which Bhishma learnt from them and which Bhishma passed on to Yudhishthira. In this way, it is a living tradition. Mahabharata is very much a living tradition as well, even during the Bhishma's time, and he has recognized it, and she is able to beautifully bring it out. And on behalf of Sanskrit Academy, I thank her very much for beautifully presenting these ideas, and in a nice and gripping way also. That is, I think not many of the people have left out during this particular thing. Maybe some audio problems are there, but the gadgets always will give their own problems. So anyway, I thank her. I thank all the people who have what is called logged on to this and patiently heard and remained there throughout.
Can I say something, please?
Also.
Can I say something?
And tomorrow,
Can I say something? I want to say
tomorrow
something.
there is 1 minute. Tomorrow there is another meeting, and that meeting also will be, I think that would have been sent to all the people. That is the ideas. The idea being that is the logging address and all those things. It is by Dr. S. Mittu, additional professor in Sanskrit in Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda College. He will be speaking on the Kalpasutras of the Vaikhanasas. Vaikhanasas are one of the great important. Vaikanas is one of the great important sages, and he is the Kalpasutra sage, and he has written his own Kalpasutra. And that particular he will be speaking on that tomorrow. And I request all of you to log in to that program also to listen. And it is being organized by Kupswami Sastry Research Institute. Somebody wants to say something?
Yeah. I am Ashok from Pune. Miss Jaydevi was the talk was excellent, and you took a lot of pains in preparing the topic of the speech or talk, and I really enjoyed this one. See, two questions I got. Is it will it come in YouTube also afterwards? Will it come in YouTube also? Is it possible?
Yes, sir. Yes, it will be uploaded in Tube. It will be in due course. It will be uploaded. All our programs are uploaded. You can log on to Kupuswami Sastry Research Institute. All our lectures are uploaded in the.
That's why how I can refer that YouTube. That's why, because
okay.
we can't remember all the points. That's why I want to see YouTube again. It is a very excellent lecture. Yeah. So when can we see YouTube again afterwards?
Balu?
By next, sir, in a week's time.
1 week time.
Okay.
இல்ல அவர் வந்து இது கேக்குறார், அந்த யூடியூப் லிங்க் கேக்குறார்.
Miss Jaydevi, can you
Yes,
say your email address and phone number? I can ask for some doubts which I am having.
Definitely, sir.
Phone number. Huh?
Definitely, sir.
So, I mean, how can you give me email address and phone number? Because,
Shall I pass on to somebody here who is known to you?
I know Miss Subramaniam from Bangalore, but I don't think he has come today to the meeting. But if you give me your phone number, I will note down and I will.
Jaydev, you
Not
can
on
present
the
your phone
not
number.
on the public platform, sir.
Okay,
Could you
okay.
please take down our email address.
Yeah.
Take down our email address. Please take down our email address. KSRINST. You can't see me. I am not on the screen. Please take down our email address. It is KSRINST, abbreviation for Kuppuswamy Sastry Research Institute.
Just a minute. I will not.
KSRINST
I'm noting
@gmail.com.
just
At
a minute. I'm noting
gmail.com.
down.
At gmail.com. At gmail.com.
KSRI.
KSRINST.
LST.
KSRINST at gmail.com.
Oh, fine. Okay.
You can contact this email address for all your queries or doubts or any
Okay.
contact.
Okay. Mrs. Kameshwari is still director of the KSRA?
Yes. I am alive and kicking.
She only gave it, the address to you.
Okay. Madam, I met you about 10 years back in institute. Ashok Gudsurkar from Ashok Gudsurkar. I came for studies for my PhD.
Okay.
Yes.
I remember now. Yes. I remember.
And I
Nice
became
to meet
member
you
of
again,
the-
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody else? Can we wind up? Yes, hope to meet you tomorrow in tomorrow's lecture. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.